He is a former CZI president, and he's here with us. Mr. Jokonya, may I ask you to come and take your seat? And then there is Mr. Felani Jabangwe. He was my junior in school. He knows I was the captain for everything I did in sport, cricket, rugby. He had to follow, you know. But he was a good athlete, but of late I don't see where that athleticism is. It the new job? I don't know. But he's a CZI president, so it's important for us to hear from him. Mr. Jabangwe, may you take your seat on the panel. Mgugu is here, NCC CEO. We also want to hear what they have to say. He's done a lot in terms of trying to get the business, the leaders to talk to each other and give that indicator that Zimbabwe is a good destination for business. May you equally take the floor. We've got Mr. Eddie Cross, and he's here with Mrs. Cross. She has become the thing driver. I don't know how much he's being paid, but he broke his arm. So I thought he'd gone skiing, but it was not that. He fell at the office. So fortunately, Mrs. Cross has a job now to drive him around. Mr. Cross, as you know, is an economist, a former member of parliament as well. He's been around in terms of business. I've always said that if you really want to understand the parastatals in this country, you need to spend time with him. He understands why each one of them was set up. Why each one of them was set up. Because he has got the institutional memory we don't have. I've always said that there's so many good things that Rhodesia did. And don't worry about the name, but worry about what they did, which is correct. And let's continue with it if we have to. We tend to worry about names, but it had a good model for this country. All those parastatals had a purpose. Each time he debated in parliament, you know, there's some other people when they get up to speak, you don't listen to them, you're on your phone. But when Eddie Cross got up to speak, I had no choice but to take my pad and start noting things down, because whatever he said made sense and would be able to understand. In terms of industry, I don't think there's anybody better in this country to be able to do that. Listen, if I was president, I would have put him on my advisory board in terms of industry. And I don't know, but I'm not president. I cannot speak for the president. I said if I was president. You cannot say this if you're in ZANU-PF, by the way. Huh? You can only say it if you're an independent member, because you then be called and said, so you want to be president now, and then you are expelled. So if you are ZANU-PF, don't try what I'm doing now, because by the end of the day, you'll be served with a letter. I want to introduce to you Professor Lumumba. He's not new to us. He's African. When he's here, he's Zimbabwean. Professor CV is there from being a lawyer, a lecturer, an advocate, being a visiting lecturer in a number of institutions, having headed the Anti-Corruption Commission in Kenya, and realizing that it was not really yielding the results. He wouldn't want to be part of it. We know what he talks about, we know how candid he is, and I felt it was important for him to come to Zimbabwe at this juncture and talk to us. Professor, may you take it to the panel. I could go on with the CV, but I think you want to hear it. We decided to, you know, it was against my decision, but my board says no, the moderator must be Dr. Mliswa. But I said no, he's too short to moderate. No one will see him. When he's standing, people think he's seated. We need somebody tall, who people can see. But they said, no, it's not about his height. It's what he stands for, this country. He's been there, he's a pastor. He believes in this country so much. He's candid, he's able to say what it is as it is. And I only wish, we had people like him in this country, and I think we would move in the right direction. Zimbabweans, we seem to be quiet. When you speak, you are said to be controversial. When you speak, because we don't speak, we are always quiet. So it's time to speak, and I felt from a business point of view, he runs a successful business, he's all round, and congratulations, he's been appointed on the Presidential Advisory Board. And I have no doubt in my mind that if it does not do what you expect them to do, I see you actually resigning. You're that sort of person. You go there pretty clear, wanting to make things happen. He'll be our moderator, and I'll now hand over to him. I wish you a good breakfast session. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Honorable Mliswa. The last thing you want to do is to abuse a speaker who comes after you. Because we have a tendency of retaliating. But I just want to say good morning to everyone, and thank you for making it for this morning workshop, conference, discussion, and really privileged to be with Prof Lumumba. I've always been an ardent and passionate follower of yours. So you have a lot of people here that really love your candor, your brain, you're a great thinker, and thanks for gracing us this time. I know your schedule is busy and you're all over the place, but a man of your stature should be able to handle all this. We're going to make sure we abuse you a little bit here, and then we will see how it goes. It is always good to see you, and all what you stand for and what we read about. Pity that you couldn't fight back your wife and then you hit the wall. Well, at least she's driving you. Next time you'll do something. Well, Chairman Zimbra, and thank you so much, Callisto, for making it. And again, delighted that you're here. You and I go a long way back. Aluta continua. More taxes to be collected now under you. I agree with Temba, though, that you should start with the big makulus there and lifestyle audit. From shoes to socks to shirts. Svelani, good to have you. And Chris, well, it's exciting. I'm going to start with you, Callisto, because I'm looking this side. And just to give us 5 minutes in what you have prepared, I'm just going to ask for 5 minutes to allow for more interaction. And then we'll give our visiting professor here a bit more time as well. Do you have another microphone? We do, yeah. I've got great speakers up front here, so if I then start saying amen, just know that I'm saying it's time out. I'll use my pastoral authority.
Thank you. Do you want me to stand up so that I can be seated? I want to sit today. Thank you very much, moderator, Dr. Shimini. I prepared a response to the main speaker. So he has not yet spoken. Wouldn't it have been better if the main speaker spoke, then we prepared to speak? Moderator, that's what I prepared. So I wanted it to be very sure, because at the moment I have to tread very carefully. I don't want it to start losing friends because I'm the chairman of Zimbabwe. And I'm bound to say something that may not be very... I wanted to hear what the main speaker said. Then when he has spoken, then I respond.
Well, Mr. Jogonya, that is a statement made by a person who has done two things. One, he has not prepared a speech. Or two, they are trying to use their rank to upset them. Which one are you?
I'm both. I have it somewhere, but I wanted to make it, because I think that's how we were advised.
Well,
that we will respond as a panelist of our main speaker, because our main speaker is really the reason why we are here.
Okay.
He knows how to provoke us.
I'm led by, is that what the other panelists here would like to do? Do you want to respond to him? Selani notes, Chris does. Eddie, are you okay? Or you'd rather shoot first?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you're not sure.
Probably as chair.
I think, moderator, let me come in. When the prof speaks, it will be difficult for anybody to speak.
Yeah.
I think let us speak first from a corporate governance point of view. He'll then come in, and I think that's how you should go. Let our people speak, and then the prof will then speak last. Thank you.
That's what we experience when we go to Zimra offices, by the way.
Thank you, moderator. You will not be told anything about Zimra. Today, I'm going to talk purely about corporate governance. How we look at things from the corporate governance, and really what we see in our economy. Let me say the challenge we have in Zimbabwe is that we're very timid people. We know so much about what needs to be done, but we're not bold to speak about it. We have no conviction, but we like moving through things now through the social media and say this has happened. In fact, if all of you know what happened, last night there was one that just started circulating about Zimra. And I think all of you might have it already on social media. The corporate governance in this country does not seem to come from the law. It seems to come from personalities. So the more I talk convincingly, the more I am given responsibility to create the law. So law is centered on individuals, not as opposed to what the law says. Corporate governance would be very easy in companies if we followed the Companies Act. That's what is defined in the Companies Act. What must we do? And what is the role of those that run organizations and companies? But it's not like that. So if I'm influential, I'll get the lion's share in an economy of Zimbabwe. You would also even find as many of us who are in boards would occupy almost like 30 boards. We used to have a man in this country, Zlet, may he rest in his soul rest in peace. The name, all of you remember, Eric Bloch. I think he was on about 156 boards, if I recall correctly. 156. So he literally lived to be on boards. But then the execution of it, to see to it that it's what he has decided and recommended, and is it being put into plan? It's not being done that way. And that's, I think, is the key disease in this country. One needs to see that corporate governance is maintained on the basis of the law. And are we implementing the law? I believe, if you want me to give you the scenarios, that's what we're going to try and do in December, Mr. Moderator. We'll try and be governed by the law. If the law says what we are going to do, we will do exactly what the law says, not what individuals want me to do. like what is circulating in the media today or in the social media. Please don't do that to me. I only act on facts which relate to the law, not on emotions. And sometimes that's what happens in many areas. Why corporate governance has affected a lot of, and I want to say, many companies at the moment in Zimbabwe are at a standstill because our corporate governance is not being implemented in a manner that is supposed to be. Companies are now failing to source foreign currency, but the board of directors know very well, and they knew it from day one that the foreign currency is not there. But they continue to pretend and not come open and say, because of the disequilibrium of the foreign currency cost in the market, foreign currency is not being made available. We all think that foreign currency must go and we must all line up to go to Reserve Bank. I disagree with that. Reserve Bank is not supposed to do that. Reserve Bank is only custodian in implementing the laws. But companies that see that if there is not enough foreign currency in the country, what is going to happen to our businesses? They should stand up and raise the red flag. And that's what corporate governance is all about. You need to raise the red flag as and when you see to it that your business is being affected. It's just like corporate governance of an individual. If I feel I'm hungry, I will quickly jump and eat. So is the company. If it also feels hungry, it must quickly jump and eat or raise the red flag and stop it. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful delivery. Thank you so much, Mr. Jogonya. Mr. Jabangwe, you're next.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will also take up. I will speak to this in relation to the companies. So Jogonya has spoken from the broad perspective, where we are aware there are a lot of anomalies in the environment, and the uncertainties that are there. How are they affecting the custodians of the companies? That is the people that have the day-to-day responsibility of running the companies. Over the years, we certainly have had people that have been self-serving in terms of sometimes business leadership. But these are the first businesses that were washed away by this economy. Because you see, in this environment, exercising corporate governance, even for the board of directors to exercise their responsibility, it is almost impossible. You know, you've got a situation where you've got different rates operating in the market. The decision of the business leader is very difficult to assess. Did they use the right rate today? Did they use the wrong rate? Did they self-serve? But I would like to also put it forward to say, in Zimbabwe, we currently have a number of companies that are actually being led by locals, which are multinationals. And to some extent, this gives a view of the corporate governance in a complex, unpredictable environment that the locals, the ones, particularly for the companies that are currently still operating, they are to some extent exercising some significant corporate governance. Because as custodians, we are supposed to do this, take care of these tasks on behalf of the organization. You must make sure that the capital is preserved. But how have the policies in place made that simple? As it's just been highlighted, everyone has been aware there's been no forex. The banking institution, the central bank has been away. But where the companies been getting the currency to run their businesses. So we're creating a situation where people are having to, yet it not be perhaps sometimes the honesty of some of the people that are in these companies. It's a situation that even auditors cannot make head or tail of what's going on. But sometimes when we see the companies collapse or the company is survived. So the issues about the systems, the Companies Act that was referred to, we know it's archaic. Currently, there's been a process to update it. But that process has been going on for like 2 or 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken. So we know the Companies Act needs to be needs to be amended. What are we using to operate? How then do we assess the level of corporate governance? You see, that time we carried out about 3 years ago a survey on transactional corruption. And unfortunately, those are some of the things that worsen the issue of corporate governance, particularly in corporates, in companies, where we are saying, for every transaction, a lot of the transactions that you have to engage in, whether you're constructing, whether you're paying taxes, whether you're at the border bringing in, the level of corruption that is there is such that sometimes if people do not pay something extra, your business simply does not open. And this is affected. So here we're looking at the corruption that's happening at the level of the operational staff. Where, for instance, if someone wants to come into the country to register a company, again, someone says you have to pay something extra. And one of the worst ones was that even in the private sector, there was I got a report of someone who wanted to open a bank account. They are a resident in one of the neighboring countries, so they wanted to open a local bank account for a project that they wanted to do. And the banking staff maybe realized that he had limited time. Then started making it very difficult until someone then approached said, look, if you do something for me, this account will be there, I'll have your card, I'll have everything. So these are sometimes the level where things are going. Then the other issue that I'd like to highlight before I sit down has to do with, we are all aware that the cost levels have gone up in terms of the cost of living for the general populace. When we do not adjust and ensure that they are adequately compensated, we are actually increasing the incentive or the drive for people to now subvert systems that are there to start to sell themselves. And this is something that we are currently seeing in that the cost movements have moved significantly from last year. So sometimes the public officers that you meet, they're either demotivated or you find that they're looking for a way to then say, look, the salary that I'm earning won't be enough for even a quarter of the month. So how do you think I'm surviving? So this is just something to add some of the issues that we are currently meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Yes. It's always that story of, in the hotel industry, we always say, you must make sure that at some point in their life, hotel employees do get one day to stay or to sleep in a hotel. Because if you don't, you are asking them to behave schizophrenic. But thanks for that. Chris, you're next.
Thank you so much. I think it's an opportunity also to thank the organizers and the special guests for such an important forum. I think when you talk corruption, it's quite a very difficult issue. When I say corruption, I link it so closely to corporate governance. I think every time I talk corporate governance, I find it difficult to ignore the element of corruption within it. For the few days ago, I think it's quite difficult to have a talk after Honorable Temba Mliswa outburst. I think in DM, in social media, talking corruption. So definitely it's a difficult platform. But let me hasten to say, in talking governance, I think what's more important is to talk about personal governance first, before we even transcend to look at the corporate governance aspect. Personal governance here, it involves respecting who you are. You realize that many a times there is that serious, can I say, maybe I want to use the word extreme abuse of the privileges, big resources our leaders could have. Governance today, you will see it its shortfalls transcended into corruption, both at corporate level and also at individual level. Let me say, for example, corruption in this country, government versus private sector, it almost seems like a neck-to-neck competition for corruption. So every time we talk corruption, you can't limit it to a particular sector. It's not necessarily public sector, but also private. To borrow it from one speaker also, we have a challenge where the major reason why governance shortfalls benefit few is it gives you room to be corrupt. But let me talk of also governance with a political governance perspective, because corporate governance sometimes is determined or it's impacted by political governance. I was just looking at a country called Turkmenistan, if you had ever researched about that country. One time I asked it why DHO. If you look at DHO, it's almost in every country in this world, but not in Turkmenistan. What could be the reason? The leader of Turkmenistan owns a company which is in competition with DHO, so it can't be in that country. Look at Africa, Equatorial Guinea. You have Ngwema in Equatorial Guinea. Today I know the vice president of Equatorial Guinea is a son of Ngwema. We have cases of corruption in Zimbabwe. They still talk about 15 million diamonds. It's the governance of institutions. So I wouldn't want to talk of governance, just maybe limiting myself to the corporate governance aspect. Because governance talks of personal governance. It talks of the political governance. And normally when political governance is weaker, it transcends into a blatant violation of the corporate governance aspect. So just looking sometimes at the nature of leadership, in case of corruption, I just mentioned Equatorial Guinea. You go to Cameroon, you go to DRC, the whole nation, arguably maybe the second biggest country in Africa if you look at the land area. You have leaders, maybe 7 leaders of the opposition, sitting in a room in Geneva, trying to find who is the best candidate. I was just saying, who are for you? These are 7 opposition leaders coming together to say, who are we going to put to fight against whatever is the existing regime in a country. But I know when Brother Fayu failed to win the hearts of everyone, I think you understand Tshisekedi had to even violate the agreement they made in a foreign land in Europe to say, go and fight the Kabila government. So, governance itself, when you look at it at the political level, it should set pace for the corporate governance. Most of our companies, sometimes we realize why it becomes difficult even to comply with governance issues, besides the laws of the land. For example, in Zimbabwe, I think you appreciate, when you talk of corporate governance, it's you comply or explain. But you look at the Cadbury reported in other jurisdictions, you comply, or else you face the consequences. How many banks had fallen in Zimbabwe during the time of Gideon Gold, even up to now? You look at your Royal Bank, you look at your ENG, I think you know about it, you know at your Century Bank, you look at your Trust Bank. But if you try to go to the bottom of it, you will see the very major reason. You hear arguments about insider loans, arguments about abuse of depositors' funds, a case of where non-executive directors are outnumbered by the executive directors, where you have an executive chairman. I start my company and I become the accountant, I become the HR. So I think one of the major reasons why we continue seeing this lackluster performance, even on our equities market, go to a stock exchange in Zimbabwe, even what you consider to be the blue chip counters, you see they become so quite weaker when you try to go beyond to look at the governance issues. We have a lot of certifying boards in Africa, to the extent that sometimes when you've got maybe board members who are hungry, the next thing is you are waiting for your board fees to come and you can't exercise independence. But at the same time, I think it's also determined by the political governance. When leadership is weak, when leadership is set not by democracy, but by nepotism, by cronyism. I gave an example of how in DRC, the whole conflict we are seeing where Fayu feels like he should be the leader of DRC opposition today. It was after a caucus of a meeting of 7 opposition members who said and felt like he was the deserving candidate to fight. But you don't care about what people think. You care about your meeting in Geneva to decide an opposition leader. Equatorial Guinea, I mentioned, I think without maybe talking about South Africa as a nation, I can see, Your Excellency, I recognize you, South Africa, you see Bosasa, the issue of Agree's testimony in the Sondo Commission. Zimbabwe, I think up to date, I used to wonder whether we ever had diamond to the extent of closing 15 billion. People talk about we lost 15 billion. How far it is? It's governance. So we can't certainly talk about corporate governance without looking at political governance of nations. We can't talk of corporate governance without looking at the personal governance. How do we govern ourselves as individuals? Like Professor Lumumba said at one point, most of these young guys you see out there, the reason why they cry about corrupt leaders is because they feel like it's not the opportunity. Try to put them in that position. They need a ticket for them also to be corrupt and benefit. I think that's how we can move in that shape.
Thank you. Merry Chris. Wow. The big umbrella is the political governance. That's what I gleaned from you there, and well put. Eddie, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. Well, good morning, everybody. And lovely to be here. Thank you for turning out. Even though typically Zimbabwe, the majority of you are late. In the book of Joshua, Joshua 1 and 2, the people of Israel are sitting on the banks of the River Jordan. They've been 38 years in the desert. They've been hungry and thirsty, no new clothes. They've seen the veterans who crossed out of Egypt die on the way. And in front of them is the promised land, occupied by giants. And Joshua says to the people, if God is with us, we can cross the river and possess the land. Professor Lumumba, 44 years ago, I was an economist in a major business organization here, the biggest business in Zimbabwe. And it was 1976, and we were at war as a country. And it was one of the most savage civil, you know, when brothers fight, it is savage. And this was a fight like the American Civil War, which I think was the bloodiest war in history. And we were killing each other, very determinedly. And we were under international sanctions, and our government, our politicians were not moving. They were not compromising. They were not worrying about, they were not seeking to deal with the future. And I went to my chairman, who was a brilliant, brilliant businessman. And I said to him, Mr. Chairman, surely, what can we do about this situation? You know, please, what can I do about it? You know, I wanted him to tell me to go out on the street and throw stones. He said to me, Eddie, come to work tomorrow and do the best that you can at your job. I walked out of that office disappointed because I wanted something dramatic from him. But the following, I thought about it, and I went back to my office the following day, and I began to double up on what I was doing the best that I could. I became chief economist of this huge organization. And then I was appointed general manager of the Dairy Marketing Board. 3,500 employees, factories across the country, one of the biggest businesses in the country. And what I did there, now we're in the middle of a civil war. My senior staff are in the bush 6 weeks, come back 6 weeks. The country was in turmoil. There were attacks. We burnt our fuel depot in Harare under attack. I said to my staff, my management, we are going to deliver milk to every home, every day, every morning. And any of you that fail to deliver that product to our clients on time is going to be fired. And we did. Every morning, Zimbabweans, Rhodesians woke up and there was milk bottles on their stoop with fresh milk in it. A group of men down on the Sabi River defending the Birchenough Bridge were under attack one night. It was a major attack. Recoilless rifles, they were under attack all night. 6:30 in the morning, what is the first thing they saw on the road down to the bridge? A dairy board vendor selling ice cream and yogurt. We gave our people a sense that life was continuing despite the struggle. And what I want to tell you this morning is sort of appeal to you. In the situation in which we are, where we've just been through a period of turmoil, riots on the streets, burning tires, people being killed with live gunfire, what can we do? What the thought I have this morning is that we can possess the land. In front of me, there are places where I am the boss. In my home. And I can make sure that in my home, my children, my grandchildren, know that there is stability and security and a future. In my church, although I'm not a leader in my church, I can participate and I can give people hope. You people know that I write. When I joined Parliament, Mliswa, I decided to write a letter every week just to inform my close friends of what was happening. Today, that letter goes out to about 3.5 million people every week because of the internet. And every one of you will know that I write. And you'll see my writings everywhere. It's a gift from God. And I do it mainly to explain to people what is happening, and I try to be independent, and I try to speak into the situation in which we are. And my hope is always that I will tell people that across the Jordan there are giants, but we can handle them. Now, I am involved, since I retired from politics, in business. I've made it my determined, I've got a few years left. I am going to create a business empire. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. I was in business before I went into politics. Politics and business doesn't mix. Not in this country. And I want to tell you this, that we're fighting corruption in government at the highest level. We're fighting inertia, incompetence, weaknesses. And what I'm determined to do is to make sure that these projects work. We're engaged in a major industrialization program for the Midlands. On Tuesday, I was in South Africa dealing with nervous investors. I want to tell you that we were able to meet 2 major investors involved in $2.7 billion worth of investment in Zimbabwe. And we got 100% support. One of them is American. In fact, they're both American. One is the largest producer of agricultural equipment in the world, which is going to establish a major enterprise in Norton.
Thank you.
We've just obtained 200 hectares of industrial land in Norton, and the Americans are going to invest. Saw the Vice President for Africa, and they're going to invest substantial money. And another corporation, in fact, one of the major corporations, one of the World Bank affiliates, has confirmed they're going to invest. We can possess the land. And I just want to encourage all Zimbabweans. Don't be pessimistic. Zimbabwe is an amazing place, Professor. We have wonderful people. I don't think you could choose to live among, I'm a Zimbabwean. 150%. My family's, we are the 6th generations here now. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, myself, my children, my grandchildren. Ilipano. My granddaughters speak English with Shona accents. Because they are the only white children in their classes. We are Zimbabweans. This is our home. Kumusha kwake. And I just want to tell you this, that if each of us do exactly what my chairman said to me, possess the land. It might be your desk at the office as a junior economist. It might be your position as general manager of a big corporation. It might simply be your responsibilities as a family head. Possess the land.
Amen.
And the future is ours. Tozinzwa.
Amen. So what about Suchiri Eddie? Because Prof Lumumba will take it from there. Thanks, Eddie, for that wealth of experience. So you are the culprit that brought the milk to our doorstep in the township. Finally found him. Please go back to your job. So we can have milk again on our doorstep. Thank you so much for that insightful, visionary, and encouraging proposition on governance. Well, Prof Lumumba, it's your turn. You've heard the cry of Zimbabweans on this panel. I do apologize that we are not very much gender sensitive, but it's a governance issue as well. So we are dealing with Honorable Temba Mliswa in future to have at least 2 ladies here, but we will work at it. We are dealing with it. But thank you, sir.
Sorry, moderator, before you speak, let me clarify that I did send the invitation to 4 ladies, but none of them wanted to do it. So it is a lady thing, and then we must deal with it. Otherwise, I was very clear about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Prof, you are esteemed and loved in Zimbabwe. Please go for it.
Thank you. Let me start by saying how glad I am to be present with you this morning to share my thoughts on the subject of corporate governance. But you will be sure that I will talk beyond that subject but remain relevant to the overall theme. I've had the advantage of listening to the other presenters, and therefore in my presentation I will take advantage of some of the things that they have said to talk about what happens in the continent of Africa on the question of governance. Let us first of all unpack this thing called governance. Sometimes the disadvantage that we have in Africa in describing some of these things is that we do so in a language that is not our own. The net effect, therefore, is that when we speak about democracy, because of our training and exposure, we tend to speak about democracy in a very Eurocentric sense. When we speak about governance, we speak about governance in a very Eurocentric sense. And when I talk about Eurocentric, I also mean America and the West generally, the conceptual West. And I think that is a handicap. Imagine to yourself that you are talking about the same things in Shona. Would you say the same thing in Shona, or in Zimbabwe, or in any other African language? You can therefore see the limitation. But my view is that language, notwithstanding that which is good and right, is language neutral. Whether you are speaking English or French, I think we can say that all human beings are capable of identifying that which is good and right. And that therefore, when we are talking about corporate governance, the nuances that are brought about by linguistic differences ought not to stand in the way of our analysis. Let us go back in Africa particularly to ask ourselves, what promises did we make to ourselves through our leaders when we were struggling to regain independence? I think invariably in every country, the promises that were made were, number one, when we regain independence, we will run our affairs and run them better than those who ran them before us. We said that. Number two, that when we run our affairs and run them better than our predecessors, we will deliver on health, we will deliver on education, we will deliver on agriculture, we will deliver on the creation of jobs and opportunities for our young men and women.
The question that we must ask, whether we are speaking in Zimbabwe or in Equatorial Guinea or Uganda or Kenya or Ethiopia, have we delivered? Is African agriculture the better because we regained our independence? Can we feed ourselves because we regained our independence? Is our education better because we regained our independence? Our health systems working because we regained our independence? In other words, have we run our institutions in a manner that has improved the quality of our people's lives? In other words, when we look at our scorecard, are we the better because we regained our independence? The answer in almost all Africans is that we are punching below our weight. The answer is that we have potential, but we have not realized what we promised ourselves. And that, I think, is at the very heart of the thing that we call governance. In the recent past, those who are commentators on Africa and observe Africa have written many books and said many things. And several books stand out in my mind. One of them is by a South African, Greg Mills, Why Africans Are Poor and What They Can Do About It. And he says that poverty is now a choice. And he says that the reason why Africans are poor overall is because their leaders have made that choice on their behalf. And that we are in the business of cheering them on as they make the wrong choices. In other words, we are co-authors of our own misfortune. And somebody who was speaking here alluded to it. In many African countries, because we have also ethnicized the governance, when one who is from our ethnic group or our clan is engaging in diabolical and destructive activities, we cheer them on regardless. He is a thief, but he is our thief, ours. And as long as he is ours, we can excuse his or our thieving ways. That is part of the problem in many African countries, and I think that if we want to talk about governance, we must begin to address all those issues. The other book that has been written about Africa is How to Make Africa Work, which is a very recent book by, once again, by Greg Mills and a former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. And they say in that book, and I agree with them, that one of the problems in Africa is that we are easily attracted to personality cult and demagogues whose only claim to fame is that they want to engage in political drama, destroy institutions that we may praise them, and in the process they destroy institutions. The experiences of many countries in the world demonstrates that if you create institutions, the institutions are capable of withstanding the tremors that may come, and that they are capable of delivering as long as there are proper institutional structures and there is a culture and an ethos that is designed to achieve a designed result. Today, in many institutions in Africa and elsewhere, you always have displayed at the reception this thing we call vision. This is our vision. This is our mission. These are our goals. But beyond the billboard that you find in the offices, that is the death of the vision. It is the death of the mission, and they are merely slogans that we bandy around. We even have strategic plans. And there is no shortage of workshops that are held in Africa in order to achieve all these. Yet I believe that Africa has the ability, if you look at the human resource in Africa, if you look at the men and women that we have trained in the last few years, and this has been demonstrated that when the people we train here in Zimbabwe or train elsewhere in Africa, when they go to Europe and they are given the opportunity, they serve. When they go to America, they serve and serve well. Let us ask ourselves, somebody did talk about parastatals that were created in the early days of many African countries, including Zimbabwe. Why is it that in many African countries, several years ago, we had airlines which were running and running on time? Did people stop flying? No. The population of people who are using airlines has increased. Then why did our airlines collapse? Is it because of governance? We set up institutions to supply meat. They collapsed in quite a number of countries. Did people suddenly become vegetarians? No. They are still eating meat. What happened? We set up institutions to produce and supply milk. Did we all suddenly become lactose intolerant? And we stopped drinking milk? No. The institutions collapse because we make wrong decisions while we know that we ought to make right decisions. And I think that is exactly what you said at the very beginning. That invariably, or most of us, by dint of our training, we know what is right. We know what we ought to do, but for some reason, we choose not to do the right thing. And the reason why we choose not to do the right thing is that we want instant gratification for ourselves. And we don't care about the future. And we are not committed. We engage in primitive accumulation. We see our positions as positions for aggrandizement of things for our personal benefit. And we are not our brother's keepers. We are not good Samaritans. In fact, there is a book that has been written by somebody, I think Yajun Chan, which is called The Bad Samaritans. We are bad Samaritans. And to the extent that we are bad Samaritans, we undermine institutions. And I can't agree more with my good friend here when he said that the ultimate form of governance is political governance. When politics stumbles, it poisons the entire environment. Proven not once, not twice, but times without number. And therefore, what politics must do and ought to do is to create an enabling environment so that when an investor in any sector is making investment, he or she is certain, number one, that there are rules that will be followed and that it is not the whims of men that will dictate how business is conducted. That everybody will be subject to certain laws which are predictable. Once you have a legal regime that is predictable, then you know that your business is safe. Number two, that there is an environment that will allow people to conduct their affairs in a manner that is beneficial to themselves, because investors are not primarily in philanthropy. They become philanthropic after they have made the money. Therefore, they want an environment where they can make the money. And politics can destroy that in a day. It has been proven, not here, only in other African countries, but throughout. Let us look at a number of countries, if only to demonstrate what I am saying. Look at Chile. during the days of Augusto Pinochet, or initially before Augusto Pinochet, in the days of a man called Salvador Allende. And this is what Allende said, that the problem in Chile that we have today is that in Chile we have no shortage of laws. We have all the laws in Chile that we need, except one law, the law that says that we should obey all the other laws. In many African countries, it's not the shortage of laws. We have them, the Companies Act, and all other laws, but we honor those laws in breach. When a different political regime came up in Chile in the last 20 years, Chile is now a middle-level economy because they got it right at the political governance level. I'm still speaking to these overarching governance. Let us talk about Vietnam. Many of us will remember that Vietnam was at war in the 1970s and how obituary had been written. In the recent past, one of the largest textile producers, even in the production of coffee, Vietnam has rebounded because they have introduced and embraced what I call political hygiene. Cambodia, Laos, and in Africa, we can cite a number of countries. People will talk about governance and other things and democracy. Rwanda in 1994, how obituary had been written. Today, you go to Kigali, you see an economy that is flowering. You go to Ethiopia, you'll see the same thing. What one is saying is that in every country, and I can't agree with you more, that even Zimbabwe has her problems now, with unemployment at levels that are unacceptable. But the resolve of the people of Zimbabwe, you know, when you travel across, when you go to South Africa, in different parts of the world, you meet people of Zimbabwean extraction. The quality of the services that they render. I was in South Africa last week in Cape Town. The gentleman who met me was a Zimbabwean. I went to a restaurant. I met a lady who was very well spoken. And I asked her, "Are you from Zimbabwe?" She said, "I'm from Zimbabwe. And I am a teacher, but I'm a waiter here." I took her number, her card. She's called Fiona. Suppose she were to come back here, what would our contribution be? In other words, there is no shortage of human resource in Zimbabwe. It is that governance which is critical that we ought to be talking about. And the confidence that you talked about, that you are meeting investors out there, before they come to Norton to invest 2.7 billion, they'll want certain guarantees. In order to recoup from our investment, we will need an environment that is predictable. We'll need to know that when we make our profits, we'll plow some of it in Zimbabwe, but we'll have to repatriate some. Is there an environment that will enable us to do that? Will we be competing with politicians who are doubling up as business people? Will we have an environment that will enable us? Is there an environment that ensures that our industries will thrive? Will we have predictable electricity? We'll have water and all those critical things. In a nutshell, I hold the view that corporate governance must be seen in the context of an enabling political environment. Is there a hope for Zimbabwe and Africa? Yes. You know, Africa is a magnet and has always been a magnet. Before you and me were born, there were people who were coming to this continent. You know, when you see people coming to a continent or to a place, there must be something that is attractive. Why is somebody leaving England to come to Zimbabwe? There must be something that is not in England, but is in Zimbabwe. When you see somebody traveling 3,000, 6,000 miles from Beijing, losing sleep to be in Zimbabwe, there must be something. Why is it that others are capable of seeing things, good things here, and we are not capable of seeing them? Why? I hold the view that there is something that is attractive. I always say this ad nauseum. In 1985, when I was a student and you heard somebody was going to Harare, you asked them, can you bring me a good shirt? Which means that there were textile industries that were working here in Zimbabwe. I want to be saying that next year. When somebody is going to Zimbabwe, get me a good shirt. And not only shirt. In other words, I hold the view as I conclude that we ourselves have the capacity to ensure that we revitalize Zimbabwe. You know now, and this is one of the things that is most unfortunate, is that we have too many people engaged in lamentation. Professional fault finders, that is all their claim to fame. As somebody once said, where there is a solution, they find a problem. You want to do something, they tell you, no, that has been tried and it has never worked. And even if you try it, it will never work. And you ask them, and what would you do in our situation? Then they have no solution. Ignore such individuals, naysayers, professional fault finders. I hold the view that each one of us has a duty to play. And I think it is Nyerere of Tanzania who used to say it in the 1960s. It can be done. Play your part. What part are you playing? Beyond your lamentation, beyond your criticism, and you are entitled to criticize. But before you go to the social media and before you you press the send button, ask yourself a number of questions. Before you compose things, ask yourself a number of questions. And these questions must be asked by everybody. The politicians must ask. Now that I've been given the opportunity and the privilege to serve, when I am dead, what will be in my obituary? That I came, I destroyed and I went? Or I came and I contributed positively? The politicians have a primary duty because we are giving them the opportunity to serve and the privilege to serve and the honor to serve. We don't call politicians honorable because they are honorable. It is the positions that they hold, is the position that is honorable. The individuals may not even be honorable, they may be dishonorable. But once we have given the opportunity to serve in order, because to give honor to that position, create an environment where we don't have to send our children to England and France to study. Let us have them study here. Create an opportunity where we don't have to send our people to South Africa or to Singapore for healthcare. Let us have good healthcare here in Harare. Create a situation where we have all the things that we need. It can be done. And those of you who are a little older, you can remember that it used to happen here in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to be described as the bread basket. Why is it that we now call our basket case? We now must reverse the situation and let Zimbabwe be the bread basket. It can't be done, and it all boils down on governance. And what is governance? If I was asked to talk to kindergarten children and they asked me, what is governance? Because we must break it down beyond the MBA class and tell it to the kindergarten. What would I tell the kindergarten? This thing that you call governance, what is it? This is what I would tell the kindergartens, particularly if they have sweets on the table. Governance means that if I have a sweet or a cake on the table, I will give each one of you a piece of it, and I will ensure that we make other cakes, because the one on the table, once we eat it, it will require to be replenished. And it is our duty to create an environment where we bake more and more cakes, because so that we must change our language. It's not just eating the cake, but baking the cake. And I think that is what governance is all about. We continue to bake the cake so that everybody can partake of it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Prof Lumumba. Amazing revelations in continuously, very simple illustrations that we all kind of get aha moments at every turn. Unfortunately, we are caught up in it's our turn to eat and not to bake. So we're not baking, but we're eating, and that's why we don't have all the things that we've aspired to have, or we used to have many years ago. We went on a consumptive road and lacked the governance to create. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we are. So it was going to be difficult, going back to my brother Jokonya, to speak after this. What were you going to say? So it would have made your work easier. So look, I just agree with him. Let's move to questions. All right, at this point, we come here because we also want to have a two-way. Questions, and if you're there, please just raise your hand, introduce yourself, and at this point, we are only taking questions. Please don't outmaneuver the speakers here. Just questions for now, and then we'll have a session for comments. Just questions. When I was at college, when a professor spoke at the end, you dared not to try and speak. You just took notes. I was just taking notes. So I'm not going to ask you a question. But yes, at the back there, there's a hand that is coming up.
Thank you very much. I'm Marian Chombo, MP for Rimba North constituency. Thank you for a very good presentation. If you were to sum it up for Zimbabwe, what would you say is the ingredient that's missing for us to turn it around? Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a few questions. Prof, I'm sure that is directed to you. What is the ingredient for Zimbabwe? We no longer make those shirts. We buy them from outside the country.
Thank you. My question is also directed to the professor.
So your name?
So my name is Lisa Tajinga. I'm a reporter at Zimbabwe Independent. So I would like to know your analysis of the current relationship between Zimbabwe and Britain, especially concerning the idea that Britain is saying they're not going to assist Zimbabwe to pay their debts at the IMF. So I would like to know what do you think is the relationship, or what do you think is going to happen in the future of Zimbabwe concerning that? Thank you.
Okay, two more questions and then I'll give the Prof to answer so that it can be. Please, you can also ask the other speakers.
Thank you. My name is Memory Karnazondo from Marondera. My question is directed to Mr. Jokonya. When you say we should raise the red flag, how do we do it in an economy like this, when we do have points to raise, but we are shut down? Thank you.
There was a recent shutdown, okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Reverend Gibson Gotoma, representing Northern Ministers Fraternal. My question would go to the political and economic commentators on the panel. The question I have is, how would you relate on the appointment of board members by the political power or the political muscle in the country vis-a-vis corporate governance? Thank you.
Okay. We will take these questions for now, and then we'll get back. I'm going to ask Jokonya, you go first. Please, can you? Yeah, thank you.
I did not come prepared to answer questions, so you will forgive me. But you've asked something that is very pertinent. And I like Eddie quoted the Bible very well. You know, the Bible starts always from the beginning. So when you look at everything else, look at the source of the problems. And I like Prof Lumumba. You did highlight that in short, the problems are politicians. They are not anyone else. So my take about, and you're not asking the corporate person, my take about the challenges we have in Zimbabwe has to do with politics in general. I've always said the politicians are a challenge. Why? Firstly, the language they speak can entice trouble and violence. Secondly, if they don't deliver, they create havoc in the area. So there was a shutdown, and you're saying the economy is shut. Let me say to you, sometimes people don't also remember what they've said. There was a pronouncement in this country. It says, let's shut Zimbabwe. I don't know whether you heard it. I heard it. It says, let's shut Zimbabwe. When you shut Zimbabwe, you shut everything. It does not mean that you are going to choose what to shut. So when we all got shut, moderator, when we all got shut, we felt someone is encroaching on my privacy. But when we announced for it that it must be shut, it was still affecting other people's privacy as well as the right of doing certain things. So I think my choice to you, my sister, I would just simply say, choose to do good. When you choose to do good, good will be reciprocated to you. The world, if you follow the world of politicians, they create havoc to make us feel that we should not prevail. They prevail. In fact, they prevail more politicians in chaos, and we can't prevail in chaos, but they create the chaos. So, to me, choose to do good, speak encouraging words, motivate others, and you'll see the world that we live in is very different.
There was another question that was raised. You want to take it? Yeah.
I'll maybe give a brief overview that also relating to appointment of all members and ministers. That was the question. I think the biggest challenge that I see is that in each of the ministries there are parastatals, and the overall oversight, yes, is by the board, but the board reports to the minister. And the assumption here is that every minister is also an excellent business leader, which sometimes may not necessarily be so, because that's not their original mandate. And then when you have our political cycles, which are our 5-year cycles, you're finding that this board is being replaced when the minister is changed. So sometimes you are not quite sure, was this because they were not good, or was it because they also not appointed by the person that is coming, and yet we want it to be as a result of competency in terms of what they are supposed to be doing. So I also think there's a challenge, because we find that all throughout the board members are usually changed when there's a political leaders. We have to change.
Yes, I think we can't overemphasize the role of Parliament in particular. One of the issues which we continue maybe mentioning and emphasizing is independence of institutions. We have a legislature, I think, which you know very well. If you look at figures, every time Zimbabwe spoke about how government spending it caused challenges in the economy. But there are laws in this country, obviously, where there should be statutory limits on how much a government should spend, for example. But if a parliament goes to sleep without looking at those issues, it becomes a problem. What do I mean by that? In appointing a board, I think it's always good practice. Also, when you talk of corporate governance, it's checks and balances. But when you have those unfettered powers as an individual, be it a minister, when I take over, it creates challenges. Going forward, I would rather aim to say solutions should lie in Parliament. You know, the parliamentary portfolio committees having a say in the appointment of even board members for parastatals. It needs to be a much more rigorous exercise than what we see now. A case of having board members who sit in more than 6 boards, one individual, maybe it's an issue wearing the head of a trustee from Zimbabwe, where I'm based also. We are quite very worried so much when you see board members who are everywhere. No room for you to open a board bank. When you come to a board meeting, you just want to have your fees, you go, you carry your board members. I think it's an issue, but at the same time, powers of ministers should somehow be trimmed, and that can only happen if you allow the legislature to parliament and portfolio committees. Look at South Africa. Outside even commissions which are investigating corruption, you see the vibrance of parliamentary portfolio committees in appointment of board members. Dudu Muyeni, the chair of South African Airways, I think you all know how she has testified to the board, rather than parliamentary portfolio committee in South Africa, in questioning the inefficiencies of South African Airways. So if ministers voted those all of powers, we should see it would help going forward.
Well, excellent. Prof?
Thank you very much. That is Maria, I think, Honorable, you asked me how do I think Zimbabwe can turn around. It is very easy from an armchair position to be prescriptive. Very easy to say, this is what you do, 1, 2, 3. I'll not do that. I hold the view that the Zimbabweans have men and women of experience and knowledge who are capable of identifying what the key problems are. And I was very glad last evening when I watched the television and I saw the dialogue within the political class is now being talked about. One of the things that must be done is that politicians across the political divide must come to the table and agree on what ought to be done to lift Zimbabwe up. When the ship is unstable, the first thing is to stabilize the ship. And stabilization requires that you ignore your short-term and narrow political and partisan interests and look at the larger picture. What is the larger picture? That you want to create a working Zimbabwe. What is a working Zimbabwe? A working Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe where there is peace and tranquility first. A working Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe where there is an environment where investors can have the courage and confidence to invest in. A working Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe where young men and women have the opportunity to serve their country. A working Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe where foreigners who want to do business have the confidence to come in. A working Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe where people can plan in the short, medium, and long term. Do the people of Zimbabwe have men and women who are capable of doing that? Yes, they do. What they need is opportunity to do that. A working Zimbabwe is where Zimbabweans who have left the country and have had exposure and experience are given opportunity, Zimbabweans and diaspora are given opportunity to contribute to their country in all the critical sectors. It can be done. Has it been done elsewhere? Yes, it has been done. Has that elsewhere been in Africa? Yes, it has been in Africa. Look at what is happening in Ethiopia now. And look at the role that the Ethiopians, both at home and the diaspora, have been involved in. The parliamentarians. What is the legal regime that is being created to enable? What are the micro and macroeconomic issues? And I'm glad that you are a member of parliament. What are the promises that you made to your constituents when you sought their votes? And outside of Africa, have we had countries that have had problems of this nature? Yes. Singapore, with a population of no more than 1.5 million, per capita income $56,000 or thereabouts. No natural resource. It can't be done. Who must do it? The Zimbabweans. Nobody else. Because everybody else is concerned with their problems. And when you have problems which cannot be solved, they run away. And they tweet about you. So my own view is that you have no shortage of men and women. In fact, in this panel, I've had the opportunity of listening to men, and on the other side to women, who convinced me that it can be done. Are there microwave solutions or instant coffee solutions? No. Those who think that the problems are going to be solved without effort are deluding themselves. It is not for the faint-hearted, but it can be done in our lifetime. You know, this China that we keep talking about nowadays, 30 years ago, this was one of the poorest countries in the world. Within 30 years, they have lifted nearly 700 million of their population out of poverty. We can do it. It can be done, and I think it will be done. Particularly if the politicians realize now we must stop and pause and make sure that we reposition ourselves. The second question, the relationship between Zimbabwe and Britain. You know, one of the problems with many African countries is that although they regained their independence, they still have this feeling that their former colonizers have some responsibility towards them. This is misguided. This idea that Britain is the mothership and we are merely satellites, and that when we are in problems we ask mothership to rescue us, will not happen. And if we think that is what is going to rescue us, oh God, come and save us. Dambisa Moyo, the Zambian economist, writes about dead aid. And she says, and I can't agree more with her, that this belief that you can lift out yourself out of poverty by receiving aid is misguided. It is our economic activities that are going to ensure that we lift ourselves. I know Britain made certain promises, but by their conduct, have they not said, we are not going to honor those promises? By their conduct, they did not say, by their conduct in the last many years, are they not telling us, you Zimbabweans, keep deluding yourselves. We are not going to honor those promises. In that environment, they are telling us, you are left to your own designs. Solve your problems. Can we solve our problems? Yes, we can solve our problems. One of the things, perhaps I'm saying this because I'm not in the African Union or I'm not in any of the regional union. You know, I've always said that organizations like SADC, can they be persuaded that if each one of you contributed 2% of your national budget to any country in the region that is in distress, you could solve the problem? Is it not a model that has been seen before? When we had a crisis in Greece, did the European Union, led by Germany, not do exactly that? We Africans must learn that. Today, I think today and the next week, we have heads of summit meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Is it not the position of the African Union to say one of our brother countries or sister countries is in a crisis? If each one of us, 54 countries who are members, were to contribute 1% of their annual budget, not GDP, would that solve the problem? This is the kind of reasoning that one would want to engage in. And I know it is very easy to dismiss such reasoning as fairy tale. But I think progressively, African countries must begin to think like that. You remember not so long ago, the Latin American countries like Brazil and Chile, and I think Argentina said, we are going to cut the umbilical cord between ourselves and the IMF. And they did to a certain extent. And once you do that, you begin to recognize that the ability to solve your problems is internal rather than external. And to conclude, you know, if we think as African countries that Britain or the United States of America and China will solve our problems, we are also telling them, we are your satellite countries. Yes. And because we are your satellite countries, we must also control your politics. And they would be right in that regard. He who pays the piper calls the tune. If we want to be truly independent, we must engage with these countries on the basis of trade, not aid. Is it going to be easy? No. Many countries, I remember, many countries have gone through sanctions regime. And in order to actually discover your true potential and ability, it is difficulties that actually reveal to you who you really are when you are in difficulties. When you are in comfort, you don't think outside of the box. And in fact, as a friend of mine said, the problem in Africa is that we think we must think outside the box. And he says, no, we must think without the box. And I think that is how we will begin to solve our problem. So they are not going to be easy solutions. Lastly, let me ask you a question. Your parents have a responsibility for you until you are of age. Once you are of age, you move out of the house. You begin to pay rent. You begin to buy furniture. When you are in trouble, you go to the bank. You don't go back to your parents. This idea that your parents will always be there for you to rescue you when you default on rent is misguided. Zimbabwe is capable, and I have no doubt in my mind that it will be doing the right things going forward. So forget the United Kingdom, think about Zimbabwe, and let Africans begin to solve their problems within the continent of Africa. Thank you.
Wow. Maybe we needed to hear these things totally different from a different voice. Thank you so much, Prof. I'd like to take 2 questions. 2. One male, one female. There's 1, 2. Thank you very much. I'll start with you. The panelists, I'm going to ask you to round up so you can ask as you round up.
Thank you. My name is Kudabashi from Zawabaya Kabasa. I run operations for a company called Kitchen Equipment Center. My question is directed to the Prof. I want to hear what are your thoughts regarding dialogue in Zimbabwe. Political dialogue, do you think it will usher in new dispensation in our country? Or is there anywhere where it has worked? I know in Kenya, where Raila and His Excellency Uhuru came together. Did it work really for the generality of the population, or it it has probably worked for the political leaders only. Thank you.
My name is Meikles, and I am third vice president of the Zimbabwe Miners Federation. I think my question is a bit of a mix. It's a question and a statement. First, I want to ask regarding the issue of the corporate governance, particularly in the, to do with the parastatals. If there is corruption at the top, we, the Zimbabwean people, are the ones that the parastatals report to. Is that not so? I am concerned that the Zimbabwean people haven't taken an active stand against the issue of corruption within the parastatals. Because obviously when the reporting is done, it's clearly showing that there is some anomalies along the way. So I think that it is an onus on people, even in an economy. It is the Zimbabwean people that run the economy, not the government. The government creates a conducive environment for people in which to operate. Therefore, when did we as Zimbabweans stop expecting from our government? We have the acts, we have the legal structures, we are supposed to pick and choose the policies that are not conducive for us, the ones operating within that economy, and ask you, the government, to fix it. So I just want to know, why are we not applying this as a nation?
Well, I'm going to, because you didn't obey my request, I'm going to push back. What are you doing as a second vice president about this issue? What are you doing?
Well, from my own standpoint as an individual, I've actively been speaking, my post generally deals with women affairs. So in terms of talking about the resources that we have as a country, Zimbabwe has at least 78% of the mineral chart available within this country. And I'm advocating through the different associations that are members under the umbrella of ZMF that, look, we need to start being able to identify the different minerals that are here and start to exploit them. We need to move from the narrative of we're small-scale miners to LSM to medium-scale miners, because there's room for movement, and that the government has to start putting in policies in place that support the growth of the indigenous. We cannot continue to rely on external funders, as it were. We cannot continue to rely on outside foreign companies to come in and invest in our minerals and exploit them and extract them, while we, the Zimbabweans, are standing and watching.
What has been your progress?
The progress so far has been good because we've been embraced by the Ministry of Mines. They have actively released funding for 10 different gold centers around the country to assist the small-scale miners. There's still a stumbling block in terms of Zimbabweans recognizing the contribution of women within those structures, because I think it's fair to say that women can play a very good role in terms of turning around this economy.
Good. Well, I'm just following up on what has been. You can take your seat.
Thank you.
I like to do that because there's a tendency about all of us always thinking that I wish our government could do this. It starts with each and every one of us. And that's what you're saying, but you're also saying what are others doing. So I was pushing back so that your testimony can catch on to one or two of us here, and maybe afterwards someone can come and speak to you, and the journey begins. It starts where you are with whoever you're with and with whatever you have, instead of expecting somebody else to come and save us. And this is what Prof was talking about, the whole colonialism aftertaste that we still have. What is Britain now going to do to us now that they don't want us? Where will they put us? I mean, we must move on with our lives. Britain or no Britain, we must move on. Good. Those were I think that was a statement, because you put it in a statement, and I'm sure the panelists, if they round up, they will probably pick up that. Prof, there was a question for you there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that part of the thing that I've observed in Africa in the recent past is that immediately after elections, invariably in all African countries, you have problems. And those problems stem from the elections. In my view, each African country should begin to ask, what do we do or don't do during elections that gives birth to these problems that destabilize our countries? In very few African countries do you find after election the losing candidate coming up and saying, I've had the honor and privilege of competing with my brother or sister. For the sake of the nation, I concede defeat. Very rare. And that speaks to the manner in which we conduct our elections. I think that is a debate that we ought to engage in. Two, in many African countries, we still have these low esteem and hangover that our elections are only good if European Union observers say they are good. In many African countries, we don't even have the confidence to print ballot papers in our own countries. They must be printed in Dubai or in England or somewhere. The net effect is that we find ourselves in a situation where the country is under stress. And I think that there are opportunities that arise out of that. And I think in many African countries, the opportunities is for the nation to rediscover herself. And that is where dialogue comes in. The recognition is that political parties are instruments for articulating visions, that they are ideas, because the whole enterprise called democracy, from where I sit, is that it is a marketplace of ideas. People acting through corporate organs are telling the people who are voting, if you give us the opportunity to serve, these are the ideas that we have about health, about agriculture, about education, about mining, and they are better than the others. If they are implemented, they will create an environment that will improve the quality of your lives. And people vote and give this particular set of individual 5 years, let's try you out, and once again the mandate is renewed. But the people in Zimbabwe, and as in many African countries, and we have seen this dialogue thing, dialogue is a good thing. It is a good thing. It is a good thing because even if you go to war, ultimately, in order to have an armistice, you will have dialogue. So it's better always to start with dialogue. And I'm happy, therefore, that dialogue is beginning to happen between government and the opposition, but it must not be a politician's dialogue. I think that dialogue must be all-encompassing. The business sector ought to be in that dialogue. The academics ought to be in that dialogue. Women as a constituency ought to be in that dialogue. Young people as a constituency ought to be in that dialogue. In other words, all sectors of the Zimbabwean society ought to be in that dialogue. And what should the dialogue do? The dialogue should ask the question, which is foundational: where did the rain start beating us? And once they have identified where the rain started beating them, what havoc has the rain caused? And once they have identified the havoc that the rain caused, they ask the second question: how can we repair the damage that has been done? And the third question: how can we immunize ourselves from the possibility of going through another circle of difficulties such as we have? Can anybody from another country purport to have the answers and the wisdom to prescribe for Zimbabwe? If there was such a person, he would be a liar and he would be deluding himself. I'm not such a one as that. What I can do is to agree that dialogue is good. The format that it ought to take, I can talk about. The peculiarities of Zimbabwe are such that the Zimbabweans have the ability. And there is no shortage of good Zimbabweans, both within and outside. In fact, I dare say that in that dialogue, there should be representation from Zimbabweans in the diaspora. Yes. Because they constitute a critical majority. And if you care to look those who are in the tax collection business, I'm sure foreign remittances now constitute a critical component of the revenue that you earn. Such people must not be ignored. And I believe that if you do that, then Zimbabwe would be on the right course. So you can borrow certain things from other countries, but also learn from the mistakes of those countries so that you don't repeat them. But let me repeat and repeat again. Dialogue, structured dialogue, comprehensive dialogue, dialogue without preconditions, dialogue without grandstanding, is the mother's milk of true peace and tranquility.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm going to ask, let's start from here. Eddie, you're being quiet. The lap of honor now, 1 minute, just to conclude this amazing session we've had, and just your final thoughts, 1 minute.
I just raised two issues, Chairman. When the Prime Minister of Ethiopia was appointed, within 3 or 4 days, he caught a plane and flew to Eritrea. They didn't know what he was coming for, but they greeted him at the airport, rolled out the red carpet, took him to the presidential office, and he said to the President of Ethiopia, "We both speak Aramaic. We are brothers. We are neighbors. What have we been fighting for the past 30 years over a bit of desert?" And he resolved the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia within one morning session. That's possessing the land. That's killing the giants. I look at Jaconia on my right there. He's been appointed chairman of Zimra. I hope that when I go to Zimra office next time, I will not be treated as an alien from Mars or as an enemy of the state, but as the client who pays his tax. And I'll be greeted with courtesy, and I will find the Zimra officials honest and helpful. And if he does that, he can come back to the panel. If he doesn't, hey, we fire him.
Thank you.
Thanks for firing me public.
Thank you. Friends, corporate governance starts from yourself. It starts at an individual level. It's a decision you're going to make. Do you want to be a person of integrity? Do you want to be an honest person? Do you want to be a genuine contributor to your own nation? It doesn't start next door. It is you who has to question yourself and say, I choose to be honest. Don't be greedy. It fails many times because of being greedy. And the sickness we have in Zimbabwe is corruption. So I ask you now, as the chairman of Zimra, you want us to succeed at Zimra, pay your taxes on time. Don't wait to be driven. Don't wait to be investigated. Don't wait for a whistleblower to come after you. Do it yourself. In fact, the Act says, when you start making income, you come to Zimra and say, I'm taxable. And we tax you. And you become a clean citizen who is guaranteed. I want to share with you, friends, never think anyone else in this country is going to solve our problems, except ourselves. I'm not going to worry about Britain turning their back on us. They've already turned their back on themselves, let alone coming to lead Zimbabwe. But ourselves, if we get committed, and each and every one of us get back to working hard, this nation is very simple to turn around. In fact, we won't even invite a professor to come here and tell us, because they already know what they want. It's because the real truth is we are good at eating. We are not very good at sowing. And that's where the whole thing changes. I thank you.
I'll take it on from the point raised related to that corporate governance starts with you and me, and also from the perspective that was with regards to us all contributing. You know, when we were told, go and do the best that you can. Now, I will also combine that with a question for the Prof. to say, in a country like Zimbabwe, something that was highlighted today, we're a very polarized country. The election results are there for all to see, and how they look. Urban went one way, rural went another. In urban, we find that that's where the intellectuals are, and the way we support our politics in this country is like the way we support soccer. If my team is not one, I'm not happy. I'm not going to participate. And to some extent, that presents some sort of moral hazard. It can justify that I will not conduct good corporate governance because those at the top are not. And yet, bigger problems happen here. In as much as Zimbabwe has got educated people, which gives us potential, that potential cannot yield anything when someone feels that because the party that I support is not the one that we want, so I'm not going to spend an extra hour reading what is it that I can do to create value. So this is a true issue that is affecting Zimbabwe. That polarization is deep. It goes even to the press. Look at the way any one issue is going by two newspapers today, read about one issue, you see how it is important. So I would like to hear you.
Yes, thank you, Professor, for quite an insightful presentation. I think you unit, as you hear, for anyone who had visited Kenya 2007, 2008, I think I appreciate the polarity, the language of entitlement, whether you're Luo, you're Kalenjin, you're Kikuyu, that was politics. So if Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta would come together at one table, naturally as Zimbabweans, I think we can drive it. Someone asked me even about the European countries. I looked at the figures one day and asked myself, the whole debate which lasted in the House of Congress in the United States, I think you saw the shutdown, government shutdown, they'd gone with historically almost 132 days. Just for a budget of $5 billion to build a wall, Mexican. Then I tried to look at it and I said, what is $5 billion to American economy? Federal government in the United States of America, it spends an average of $5 billion every 12 hours. So is the issue the $5 billion, not necessarily checks and balances. We need them. We need a parliament which is also accountable to its people. Just now we spoke about the statutory limits where you can't borrow more than 20% of your revenue. Last year, we've been doing it. Honorable Mliswa and other MPs, you're sitting in the house doing that. So you talk of governance, it starts with you. Theresa May, someone is asking about UK. I think you know about Brexit. What is happening? 29 March, UK is moving out of the European Union. But challenges in the House of Commons today, they are solved between the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, and Theresa without needing the EU to solve the whole circus about the EU configuration. So as Zimbabweans, I'm convinced we can certainly solve our own problems. We have to appreciate, respect, and at the same time uphold the rule of law and the Constitution at the same time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Before I ask the Prof to just say the final words, I would like to just read a portion of the scriptures. Matthew 5 verse 13 to 16 says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." That for me sums up corporate governance. It starts with you, me, at an individual basis. The polarity that Svellan was talking about is shocking in this country. You can only be A or B. You can't be C. And governance means that there is a C, there is a D, there is an E, there is an F. And this has been caused by our perpetual election mode. We are never outside an election. 2 months after we had done our 2018 elections, the two major parties were preparing for 2023 elections. And our psyche is upset. We are already polarized. We're not thinking seriously about to build. And then the other aspect that you see out of here, for me, is the whole absence of critical thinking. So we become binary thinkers, where we think like this or like that. We are either MDC or ZANU-PF. We are either colonized or we are free. It doesn't have to go black or white. And so we have retained no critical thinking has probably been one of the missing pieces. And I think that Zimbabweans, we have that capacity. And also the capital flight, which skills and money has created a vacuum there. And then governance has become a big battle with people. So those are just my own views as I just observed some of the conversations that have been going on here. But Prof, you've been amazing. Please, your final comments.
Sorry, are we going to have any contributions?
No, you can't.
We just had you say questions and then contributions. We just had a small contribution. Just a small.
Let him speak. Governance means that there's order.
Yes, thank you.
You know, what I'm about to say is easier said than done. When you talk about the polarization in Zimbabwe, if you go to Kenya, they'll tell you the same thing. If you go to Uganda, they'll tell you the same thing. You go to South Sudan, they'll tell you the same thing. You go to Gabon, they'll tell you the same thing. You go to Equatorial Guinea, they'll tell you the same thing. There is something that elections do in Africa that is very negative. And the thing is this from where I sit. Most individuals in the political arena in Africa go into the electoral process on the basis that I must win. There is never an option of losing everywhere. And therefore the levels of disappointment are normally very deep. And those who wield the power also go into the elections on the basis we can never lose. So you start from those two poles which cannot be reconciled. The population are pawns in the political chessboard, and they are wedded to individuals rather than to parties in many countries. So that you may talk of political parties, but in truth, in many African countries, the things we call political parties are not political parties in the classical sense. It is the individuals, as a friend of mine once said, in many African countries, it is not the song that matters, but who the singer is. So when you come from that perspective, then you find this polarization. And it creates resentment. And that coupled with arrogance, because many politicians in Africa are not very humble people. Many politicians in Africa assume that they have the monopoly of wisdom. And when they say that the sky is blue, it's blue. And when they say it has suddenly turned green, your duty is to agree that it's green. In other words, you suspend thinking. I do not know, one of the things that insults me most, particularly when you are dealing with many African politicians, is the assumption that the African populations are a bunch of nincompoops who don't think. It doesn't matter whether you have gone to school, but we are a bunch of nincompoops. So one of the things that will happen, and I believe should happen in this process of dialogue, is to enable the politicians to go into a soul-searching mode, to ask the question, how have we wronged the people of Zimbabwe by word, deed, by action or inaction? And once they ask those very painful and disturbing questions, they will ask, why are we in politics at all? Is politics an end in itself or a means to an end? Easier said than done. Easier said than done. They will even say this is pontificated. But from where we sit, we have the vantage point of asking ourselves, is this sustainable when a country is so polarized? Is it sustainable? Is it good for business? Is it good for posterity? And my own view is that there are no easy solutions. Is Zimbabwe the first country to go through this? Is Africa the first continent to go through this? When I was in school, we used to be told that since 1945, the Second World War, Italy had had 45 governments. 45. An average of one government every year. And there was a time in Italy when the lira had become like the bond in Zimbabwe. The Italian lira, you remember? Yes. There was a time in Greece when the Greek drachma had gone riot. Right now, we see the same situation in terms of the economy in Venezuela. In other words, countries go through this kind of experience, and is how we deal with it. And I like what you said about looking at the Jordan and asking ourselves, and you send your scouts, and they go there and tell you, they come back and tell you they are giants, we are just like little ants. There is no way we can surmount these problems. My own view is that they are surmounted. The Baganda have two beautiful sayings with which I want to conclude. One of them is that that which ripens quickly rots quickly. And there is a sense in which when we are going through dialogue, let's not look for quick fixes, where we create jobs for the boys. Let us look at the long-term health, and let us be sacrificial about the decision that we make. The second saying that the Baganda have is this: what will kill you begins as an appetite. If you have appetite for bad things, ultimately you will die by them. But what will save you also starts as an appetite. So you ask yourself, what do you have appetite for? Many people have appetite for using political office or indeed any office for personal benefit, and ultimately they destroy the nation. But those who have appetite for making the nations better, not only for themselves but for generations yet to come, will serve their nations well. Can it be done here in Zimbabwe? I believe you have already started going through it. There are pains that you will suffer. You know, you said something. Why do you invite visitors to talk at this forum? Is it because they are more knowledgeable? No, they are not. Is it because they have solutions? No. The reason why you invite visitors, and I've said this at many fora, is because you who are inside this house have gotten so used to it that if there is a cobweb somewhere, you think is a part of your furniture. My duty as a visitor whose eyes are sharp is to ask you, is that not a cobweb? Then you begin to realize it is a cobweb and you remove it. That is what I'm doing. I have no solutions. It's simply to prick your minds and your hearts and to repeat the same thing that you know, but from a different tone and from a different vantage point. And you said it very well. Ultimately, it is you who will solve your problems. God bless you.